Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Facts channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. Maybe you had a long day, or maybe you're the kind of person who likes falling asleep to mysteries hidden beneath ocean waves rather than counting sheep. Either way, tonight's journey is for you. Let your mind relax, your breathing slow, and your body grow light as water pressing down through layers of darkness. Because tonight, we're exploring deep-sea creatures, those beings that live where sunlight cannot reach, where pressure would crush us, and where the rules of life transform into something almost alien. We'll drift from bioluminescent displays to creatures that live without eating for years, discovering how life adapts to the most extreme environment on Earth. Some of what you hear tonight may surprise you, or at least spark curiosity as you drift off into the depths of sleep. Before we begin, if this helps you unwind, consider liking and subscribing, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, let's begin. The deep sea begins where sunlight ends. Around 200 meters below the surface, the last traces of blue light fade into permanent darkness. Here, the twilight zone stretches downward, a realm where shadows give way to absolute black. The temperature drops to near freezing, hovering just above the point where water would turn solid. Pressure increases with every meter, building to forces that would collapse human lungs in an instant. Yet life persists in this crushing darkness, adapted over millions of years to conditions we can barely imagine. The deep sea covers more than half of Earth's surface, making it the largest habitat on the planet. And we have explored less of it than we have explored the surface of the moon. This leads to something even more remarkable: the giant squid, a creature of legend and nightmare in old sailor tales, drifts through these depths with eyes the size of dinner plates. Each eye measures up to 11 inches across, the largest eyes in the animal kingdom. These massive organs gather every available photon in the darkness, detecting the faint bioluminescence of prey or the silhouette of predators passing above. The giant squid's body can reach lengths of over 40 feet, with tentacles extending even farther into the black water. They move with slow, deliberate pulses of their funnel, conserving energy in a world where food arrives unpredictably. Their arms are lined with hundreds of suction cups, each ringed with sharp teeth that grip prey without releasing. In the cold and the dark, they wait, patient as stone, for something living to drift within reach. Not all squid grow to such proportions. Some deep-sea squid are no larger than a human thumb, but they too have adapted to the darkness in extraordinary ways. The glass squid, for instance, has a body so transparent that light passes through it almost without interruption. You can see through its flesh to the organs within, which appear as small dark shapes suspended in crystal clarity. This transparency serves as camouflage, making the squid nearly invisible to both predators and prey. Even its eyes are mostly clear, though they must retain some pigment to function, creating two small dark spots that float in the water like disconnected thoughts. The glass squid drifts through the midwater realm, between the surface and the abyss, hunting smaller creatures while avoiding becoming a meal itself. While the glass squid relies on invisibility, other creatures embrace light itself. Bioluminescence, the production of light through chemical reactions within living tissue, appears in more than 90% of deep-sea animals. Bacteria, jellyfish, fish, squid, shrimp, and countless other organisms generate their own light in an environment where darkness should reign supreme. Some use light to attract prey, dangling glowing lures in front of their mouths. Others use it to communicate, flashing patterns to potential mates or rivals. Still others employ light as a defense, confusing predators with sudden brilliant displays or ejecting clouds of glowing particles like living smokescreens. The chemicals that produce this light, luciferin and luciferase, react together to create a cold glow that wastes almost no energy as heat, far more efficient than any light bulb humans have invented. Beyond this, there's another mystery swimming through the deep. The barreleye fish possesses one of the strangest faces in the ocean. Its head is a transparent dome, a bubble of clear tissue through which you can see directly into its skull. Inside this living window sit two tubular eyes that point upward, constantly scanning the water above for the silhouettes of prey. These are not the eyes you might expect to see on a fish. They are cylindrical, almost telescope-like, providing exceptional vision in the upward direction, but unable to see forward or to the sides. For years, scientists believed the barreleye could only look up, trapped in a permanent state of gazing toward the surface. Then researchers discovered that the fish can rotate its eyes forward inside its transparent head, allowing it to see its prey after capturing it. The dome protects these delicate organs from the stinging tentacles of siphonophores, jellyfish relatives that the barreleye likely steals food from, plucking small animals from their grasp. This leads to something even more remarkable about how deep-sea creatures sense their world. The pressure of the deep ocean creates problems for any organ filled with air, including the swim bladders that most fish use to control buoyancy. Many deep-sea fish have abandoned swim bladders entirely, relying instead on lipids, fats that are lighter than water, stored in their tissues. Others have evolved gelatinous bodies with little muscle mass, achieving neutral buoyancy by becoming mostly water themselves. These adaptations give deep-sea fish their characteristic appearance, often soft and somewhat flabby compared to their muscular surface-dwelling cousins. The lack of rigid structures allows them to withstand pressures that reach over 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure at sea level, forces that would cause most surface animals to collapse inward like crushed cans. Not all deep-sea dwellers are fish or squid. The vampire squid, despite its ominous name, feeds not on blood but on marine snow, the constant rain of dead material that drifts down from the surface world. Flakes of dead plankton, fecal matter, discarded mucus nets, fragments of larger carcasses, all of this detritus tumbles slowly through the water column, and the vampire squid collects it with specialized filaments. These thin, sticky strands extend from the squid's body like fishing lines, gathering particles that the squid then pulls back and combs through its arms into its mouth. This passive feeding strategy requires minimal energy, allowing the vampire squid to survive in oxygen minimum zones where most predators cannot follow. Its body appears black or deep red in most light, but in total darkness, bioluminescent photophores on its arms and body can produce bright blue light, creating a startling display meant to frighten away anything that might threaten it. While the vampire squid feeds on the dead, the anglerfish waits for the living. Female anglerfish, the ones most people picture when they think of these creatures, carry a modified dorsal spine that extends forward over the mouth like a fishing rod. At the tip of this lure, called an esker, lives a colony of bioluminescent bacteria that glow with steady light. The anglerfish waves this lure back and forth in the darkness, mimicking the movement of small prey, and when something approaches to investigate, the fish opens its enormous mouth and creates a vacuum that sucks the prey inside. The jaw can unhinge to swallow prey larger than the anglerfish itself, and the stomach can expand to accommodate the meal. In a place where food is scarce, the ability to eat anything you can catch, regardless of size, proves invaluable. The anglerfish's teeth angle backward, ensuring that anything that enters the mouth cannot escape. A living trap that sits motionless in the current, waiting with the patience of deep time. Beyond this method of hunting, the anglerfish has evolved an even stranger adaptation for reproduction. Male anglerfish are tiny compared to females, sometimes less than an inch long, and they face the daunting challenge of finding a mate in the vast darkness. When a male encounters a female, he bites into her body and releases an enzyme that digests his own mouth and her skin, fusing them together. Over time, their circulatory systems connect, and the male gradually loses his eyes, fins, and most internal organs, becoming little more than a sperm-producing appendage attached to the female. He receives nutrients from her blood and fertilizes her eggs when she's ready to spawn. Some female anglerfish carry multiple males fused to their bodies, a living harem that ensures successful reproduction in an environment where finding a mate might otherwise be impossible. This extreme sexual parasitism represents one of the most unusual reproductive strategies in the animal kingdom. Not all deep-sea creatures hunt with patience and stillness. The viperfish, with its long needle-like teeth and hinged skull, actively swims through the water hunting prey. Its teeth are so long that they don't fit inside its mouth when closed. Instead, they curve upward and backward, creating a cage that impales anything the viperfish bites. The fish swims with its mouth open, using photophores along its body to attract smaller fish, then snaps its jaws shut with remarkable speed. The hinged skull allows the mouth to open extraordinarily wide, nearly folding the head backward to create a trap large enough to swallow prey half the viperfish's own size. After feeding, the viperfish may not eat again for days or even weeks, its metabolism slowed to conserve energy in the cold water. It drifts through the darkness between hunts, a dagger suspended in liquid space. While the viperfish hunts in the midwater, other creatures specialize in life on the seafloor, where the abyssal plains stretch flat and featureless for thousands of miles. The tripod fish stands on the bottom on 3 elongated fin rays, like a living tripod, facing into the current with its pectoral fins extended. These fins are covered in sensory cells that detect vibrations in the water, allowing the fish to sense approaching prey without relying on vision. When something edible drifts close enough, the tripod fish lunges forward to capture it, then settles back onto its tripod stance to resume waiting. This strategy, called sit-and-wait predation, minimizes energy expenditure in an environment where every calorie counts. The tripod fish may stand in one spot for hours or days, motionless except for the gentle movement of its pectoral fins in the current, reading the water like we might read Braille. This leads to something even more remarkable about deep-sea adaptations. Many deep-sea fish have lost their pigmentation entirely, appearing ghostly white or translucent. Without sunlight, there's no evolutionary advantage to maintaining the cells and proteins needed to produce color, so these species have abandoned pigmentation altogether. Some retain only their eyes as dark spots on otherwise colorless bodies. Others have eyes that have degenerated into vestigial organs covered by skin, no longer functional but still present as evolutionary echoes of their surface-dwelling ancestors. In caves on land, similar adaptations occur over thousands of generations, but in the deep sea, this process has repeated itself independently in dozens of different lineages, each adapting to darkness in similar ways. The deep sea becomes a laboratory of convergent evolution, showing us how life responds predictably to extreme conditions. Not all deep-sea creatures are permanent residents. The sperm whale, the largest toothed whale on Earth, makes regular forays into the abyss to hunt giant squid. A large male sperm whale can dive to depths exceeding 3,000 meters, holding its breath for over 90 minutes while it searches for prey in total darkness. The whale uses echolocation, producing powerful clicks that bounce off objects in the water, creating a sonic picture of its surroundings. These clicks are among the loudest sounds produced by any animal, powerful enough to stun prey and possibly even to kill smaller fish. The whale's massive head, which makes up 1/3 of its body length, contains a structure called the spermaceti organ, filled with a waxy substance that may help focus sound or assist with buoyancy control during dives. When the whale finds a squid, a battle ensues in the darkness, giant grappling with giant, and the whale often surfaces bearing circular scars from the squid's sucker teeth as proof of the encounter. While the sperm whale visits the deep, the Dumbo octopus lives there permanently, hovering above the seafloor in the hadal zone, the deepest parts of the ocean, named for the ear-like fins that protrude from its body, resembling the Disney elephant. The Dumbo octopus flaps these fins to propel itself through the water with gentle undulations. Unlike their shallow water cousins, Dumbo octopuses have a mostly gelatinous consistency, with minimal muscle mass and no ink sac. At depths where water pressure exceeds 1,100 times atmospheric pressure, where most marine life cannot survive. The Dumbo octopus feeds on worms, bivalves, and crustaceans, swallowing them whole. They rarely encounter predators in these extreme depths, drifting through their domain like living parachutes, arms trailing behind them, moving with dreamlike slowness through the crushing darkness. Beyond the Dumbo octopus, other creatures inhabit the hadal zone in surprising numbers. The Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean, at nearly 11,000 meters, hosts communities of amphipods, snailfish, and other organisms thriving under conditions that seem incompatible with life. These creatures have special proteins in their cells that prevent their cellular structures from collapsing under pressure. Their cell membranes contain high concentrations of unsaturated fats that remain flexible in the cold and under pressure, while saturated fats would become rigid and brittle. The snailfish of the Mariana Trench lack scales and have partially cartilaginous skeletons rather than fully boned ones, allowing their bodies to flex with the pressure. They feed on small crustaceans and appear almost translucent, with organs visible through their skin. In 2017, a snailfish was filmed at 8,178 meters, the deepest fish ever recorded, swimming calmly through water that would instantly crush most organisms. This leads to something even more remarkable about how life has colonized every niche in the ocean. Hydrothermal vents, discovered only in the late 1970s, create oases of life on the deep seafloor, powered not by sunlight, but by chemical energy from Earth's interior. Superheated water, reaching temperatures above 400 degrees Celsius, erupts from cracks in the seafloor, where tectonic plates pull apart. This water carries dissolved minerals and chemicals, particularly hydrogen sulfide, that certain bacteria can use as an energy source through a process called chemosynthesis. These bacteria form the base of a food chain that includes giant tube worms, eyeless shrimp, and specialized fish species. The tube worms, some growing over 6 feet long, have no mouth or digestive system. Instead, they absorb hydrogen sulfide through their plume-like gills and transport it to colonies of bacteria living in their body tissue. The bacteria convert the chemicals into organic compounds that nourish the worm, creating a symbiotic relationship unlike almost anything else on Earth. Not all vent creatures are stationary. The Pompeii worm builds tubes on the sides of hydrothermal chimneys where temperatures vary dramatically, from near freezing in the surrounding water to over 80 degrees Celsius near the vent openings. These worms are among the most heat-tolerant complex animals known, with specialized bacteria growing on their backs like a fleece that may protect them from the extreme temperatures. The worms wave their tentacled heads in the water to feed on particles while their bodies remain anchored in their tubes. They exist in a narrow zone where conditions are just survivable. Too hot for most life, but not hot enough to cook them alive. The fact that complex animals can thrive in such conditions expands our understanding of where life might exist, both on Earth and potentially on other worlds with similar extreme environments. While some creatures cluster around hydrothermal vents, others inhabit the abyssal plains that stretch between them, vast underwater deserts that receive almost no food from above. The sea cucumber, a relative of starfish and sea urchins, crawls across this barren landscape, ingesting sediment and extracting any organic matter it contains. The animal is mostly water and gelatinous tissue, shaped like a soft cylinder that undulates as it moves. Its mouth, surrounded by feeding tentacles, shovels sediment continuously, processing huge volumes of mud to extract the tiny amounts of nutrition available. Sea cucumbers leave trails across the seafloor, winding paths visible in photographs taken by deep-sea submersibles, evidence of their slow, patient work, cleaning and recycling nutrients. When threatened, some species can eviscerate themselves, expelling their internal organs through their anus to distract predators, then regenerating these organs over several weeks. This dramatic defense mechanism allows them to escape and survive to continue their quiet work. Beyond this, there's another mystery crawling through the sediment. The sea spider, not actually a spider but a marine arthropod in the class Pycnogonida, walks across the seafloor on impossibly long legs. Deep-sea species can have leg spans exceeding 30 inches, attached to bodies so small that their digestive system extends into the legs themselves because there's not enough room in the central body. These creatures move in slow motion, stepping carefully across the bottom, using a proboscis to pierce the bodies of soft-bodied prey like jellyfish and anemones. Then sucking out the internal fluids, their circulatory system is so primitive that they rely on simple diffusion to transport oxygen. And their legs contain not just digestive organs, but also parts of their reproductive system. In the cold, deep water, these bizarre creatures have grown larger than their shallow water relatives, following a pattern called deep-sea gigantism that appears in many species. This leads to something even more remarkable about gigantism in the deep. The giant isopod, a crustacean related to the small pill bugs or roly-polies that live in gardens, grows to 16 inches long in the deep sea. It scuttles across the seafloor on 14 legs, scavenging whatever food it can find, from dead whales to fish carcasses to marine snow. The isopod's body is protected by overlapping armor plates, and it can roll into a ball when threatened, presenting nothing but hard exoskeleton to potential predators. These creatures can survive for years without eating, entering a state of dormancy where their metabolism slows to almost nothing. In aquariums, giant isopods have refused food for over 5 years, apparently content to wait until something more appetizing appears. This ability to endure prolonged starvation makes sense in an environment where food arrives sporadically, and a creature might wait months or years between meals. Not all giant crustaceans are scavengers. The Japanese spider crab, with leg spans exceeding 12 feet, stalks across the seafloor, hunting mollusks, dead animals, and algae. The crab moves slowly on its impossibly long legs, which seem too thin to support its weight, but work perfectly in water where buoyancy reduces the burden. Its body, relatively small compared to its leg span, sits atop these spindly supports, like a basket carried by stilts. The crab decorates its shell with sponges and other sessile organisms, creating camouflage that helps it blend with the sea floor. As it walks, it appears almost mechanical, a creature that seems constructed rather than evolved, moving through the darkness with alien grace. Young crabs undergo multiple molts as they grow, shedding their exoskeletons and emerging slightly larger each time, until they reach their full impressive size after perhaps a century of life. While these giants crawl across the bottom, smaller creatures drift through the water column in numbers almost beyond counting. Copepods, tiny crustaceans barely visible to the naked eye, exist in such vast quantities that their combined biomass may exceed that of any other animal group on Earth. Deep-sea copepods migrate vertically through the water each day, rising toward the surface at night to feed, then descending to darker depths during daylight to avoid visual predators. This daily vertical migration, repeated by countless billions of individual animals, represents the largest movement of biomass on the planet. The copepods feed on phytoplankton and smaller zooplankton near the surface, then carry this energy into the deep when they descend, creating a biological pump that transports carbon from the atmosphere into the ocean's depths, helping to regulate Earth's climate in ways we're only beginning to understand. This leads to something even more remarkable about the interconnectedness of ocean life. When a large whale dies and sinks to the seafloor, it creates a whale fall, an oasis of nutrition that can support unique communities for decades. The carcass arrives on the bottom like a gift from heaven, a sudden abundance in a desert of scarcity. Within days, sleeper sharks and hagfish arrive to tear into the soft tissue, consuming tons of flesh. Mobile scavengers, like crabs and amphipods, swarm over the bones, cleaning them of any remaining meat. After the soft tissue has been consumed, specialized bacteria colonize the bones themselves, breaking down the lipids stored within, and these bacteria support communities of unique worms and mollusks found nowhere else on Earth. A single whale fall may support hundreds of species over its lifetime as a food source, progressing through distinct ecological stages that can last 50 years or more. In this way, whales continue to give life even after death, their bodies becoming islands of abundance in the deep. Not all food falls from above arrive as complete animals. Most of the ocean's depths survive on marine snow, that constant gentle rain of particles that drifts down through the water column, like an underwater snowstorm that never ends. Flakes of phytoplankton, fragments of fecal pellets, mucus strands from jellies, all of this detritus provides the baseline nutrition for deep-sea communities. The particles sink slowly, sometimes taking weeks or months to drift from surface to seafloor, and during this time, they're consumed and repackaged repeatedly by different organisms. What finally reaches the bottom is often just the most resilient fragments, the pieces that resisted digestion on the way down. Yet even this provides enough nutrition to support the creatures of the abyss, who have evolved to extract energy from the most meager sources imaginable. Beyond the constant rain of marine snow, there exists another source of nutrition in the deep that arrives unpredictably but dramatically. Woodfalls, when logs or trees are washed into the ocean and sink to the seafloor, create specialized habitats that support unique species. Certain clams and other bivalves have evolved to bore into the wood, using symbiotic bacteria in their gills to digest cellulose, the main component of wood fiber. These wood-boring clams can colonize a sunken log and extract nutrition from it for years or even decades, creating small communities that depend entirely on this terrestrial material. The bacteria that help digest the wood are similar to those found in the guts of termites on land, showing how evolution finds parallel solutions to similar problems in vastly different environments. When the wood is finally consumed, the clams release larvae that drift in the currents, searching for the next rare woodfall, somehow finding these scattered resources across the vast emptiness of the abyssal plains. While some creatures wait for food to arrive, others actively hunt in ways that seem almost impossible in the darkness. The dragonfish possesses a remarkable adaptation, a patch of tissue beneath its eye that produces red bioluminescent light. Most deep-sea creatures cannot see red wavelengths, which don't penetrate far through water, so the dragonfish essentially possesses an infrared flashlight invisible to its prey. It can illuminate potential meals without alerting them, seeing them clearly while remaining unseen itself. The fish also has a chin barbel that glows blue, a lure that attracts prey close to its mouth. With these two light sources, one hidden and one obvious, the dragonfish hunts with advantages its prey cannot match. Its teeth are transparent, reducing reflections that might give away its position, and its jaw can drop open to 90 degrees, creating a trap that snaps shut before prey can react. In the darkness, it moves like a ghost equipped with secret vision. This leads to something even more remarkable about how deep-sea creatures have evolved specialized senses. The chimera, also called the ghost shark or ratfish, glides across the seafloor using electroreceptors on its snout to detect the faint electrical fields produced by the muscles and nerves of buried prey. These ampullae of Lorenzini, jelly-filled pores connected to sensory cells, can detect electrical fields as weak as 1/1000th of a volt. The chimera sweeps its snout back and forth just above the sediment, like a metal detector scanning a beach, reading the electrical signatures of hidden worms, mollusks, and crustaceans. When it detects something alive beneath the mud, it digs with its snout or uses water jets from its gills to expose the prey, then crushes it with tooth plates designed for grinding hard shells. The fish moves through its world, guided by senses we can barely comprehend, perceiving fields and forces invisible to our eyes, navigating by feeling the very life force of other organisms. Not all deep-sea hunters are large or fearsome. The hatchetfish, a small silvery fish shaped like an axe blade, hovers in the mid-water, using bioluminescent photophores on its belly to create counter-illumination camouflage. When a predator looks up from below, it sees the hatchetfish silhouetted against the faint light filtering down from above. but the hatchetfish can adjust the intensity and color of its belly lights to match the downwelling light, effectively erasing its shadow and becoming invisible from below. The fish constantly adjusts this illumination as it rises or falls through the water column, maintaining perfect camouflage regardless of depth. Its tubular eyes point upward, scanning for prey and predators above, while its belly lights protect it from threats below. In this way, the hatchetfish exemplifies the arms race between predator and prey that has driven evolution in the deep, where survival often depends on being either invisible or equipped to see the invisible. While the hatchetfish hides in plain sight, other creatures embrace being seen when it serves them. The cookie-cutter shark, a small cigar-shaped shark, rarely exceeding 20 inches long, has a glowing belly that mimics the silhouette of a small fish. When a larger predator approaches from below to investigate what appears to be an easy meal, the cookie-cutter shark suddenly attacks, latching onto the larger animal with specialized lips that create suction. It sinks its teeth into the flesh, then spins its entire body like a corkscrew, cutting out a circular plug of tissue before releasing and swimming away. The victim is left with a distinctive round wound, a cookie-cutter scar that marks it as having encountered this small but audacious predator. Cookie-cutter sharks have attacked whales, dolphins, large fish, and even submarine equipment. Their bioluminescent lure so convincing that animals many times their size fall for the deception. The small shark feeds on pieces stolen from giants, turning the size difference into an advantage rather than a limitation. Beyond these active predators, there exist creatures in the deep that seem to barely qualify as animals at all. The sea pen, despite its name suggesting a writing implement, is actually a colonial organism related to corals and sea anemones. It anchors itself in the sediment like a living quill pen standing upright, its feather-like branches covered with polyps that capture passing food particles. Each sea pen is actually a colony of individual animals that have specialized into different forms, some feeding, some reproducing, some pumping water through the colony. The entire structure can glow with bioluminescent waves of light that travel along the branches, possibly as a defense mechanism to startle predators or attract the predators of anything trying to eat the sea pen. In the darkness of the seafloor, fields of sea pens create forests of light, each individual standing alone, yet part of a larger community that spans the bottom, like underwater gardens planted in mud. This leads to something even more remarkable about colonial organisms in the deep. The siphonophore, a relative of jellyfish, exists as a floating colony that can extend over 150 feet in length, making it potentially the longest animal on Earth. The creature appears as a single organism but is actually composed of thousands of specialized individuals called zooids, each performing a specific function for the colony. Some zooids form swimming bells that propel the colony forward. Others trail long, stinging tentacles to capture prey. Still others digest the food or handle reproduction. The colony moves through the water like a living, sane net, its tentacles spread in a deadly curtain that stings and captures anything that touches them. The siphonophore glows with bioluminescence, creating patterns of light along its length that pulse and flow like neon signs in the darkness. Prey attracted to the light finds itself entangled in tentacles before it realizes the lights are attached to something dangerous. The colony drifts through the midwater hunting constantly, an organism that defies our usual categories of life, neither quite individual nor quite collective. Not all bioluminescent displays serve to attract prey or mates. The octopus of the genus Staroteuthis possesses bioluminescent suckers along its arms that may lure small crustaceans close enough to capture. But these octopuses, also called finned octopuses, swim by flapping ear-like fins rather than jetting with their siphons, moving through the water with slow, graceful undulations. Their bodies appear translucent or reddish, and they lack the ink sacs of their shallow water relatives, as ink would be useless in the darkness. The octopus drifts above the seafloor searching for prey, its 8 arms spread like the petals of a deadly flower, the glowing suckers arranged along each arm like strings of lights. When something edible blunders into this living net, the arms close gently around it, drawing it to the beak-like mouth at the center. The octopus feeds slowly, methodically, in no particular hurry, alone in the darkness with time stretching before it, like the water itself. While these octopuses hunt small prey, other cephalopods have evolved to take on larger meals. The colossal squid, even larger than the giant squid, possesses swiveling hooks embedded in the suckers of its tentacles, allowing it to grip prey that might slip free of suction alone. The largest colossal squid ever captured measured over 30 feet long and weighed nearly 1,000 pounds, though specimens may grow even larger in the unexplored depths. Unlike the giant squid with its muscular body built for swimming, the colossal squid has a higher ammonia content in its tissues, making it neutrally buoyant, but also making its flesh toxic and unpalatable to some predators. The squid ambushes prey rather than chasing it, conserving energy by hanging motionless in the water until something approaches close enough to seize. Its huge eyes, even larger than those of the giant squid, can detect the faintest movements in the darkness, giving it early warning of both prey and threats. In the Antarctic waters where it dwells, the colossal squid represents an apex predator, feared even by sperm whales that sometimes bear scars from encounters with these powerful animals. This leads to something even more remarkable about squid intelligence and behavior. Many deep-sea squids can change the texture and color of their skin rapidly despite living in near total darkness, where such displays would seem pointless. Scientists believe these color changes might not be for external communication but for internal purposes, helping the squid regulate emotions or stress responses. The chromatophores, specialized pigment cells in the skin, are controlled by neural signals, creating patterns that might reflect the squid's internal state. Some researchers have compared this to humans blushing or going pale with fear, involuntary responses that reveal internal conditions. In this interpretation, the squid's color changes are a visible manifestation of thought and feeling, their skin acting as an external display of their nervous system's activity. Whether or not the squid is conscious of these changes, or whether other animals can interpret them in the darkness, remains one of the many mysteries of deep-sea life. Not all mysteries involve behavior or biology. The deep scattering layer, detected by sonar as a false seafloor that rises and falls daily, puzzled oceanographers for years until they realized it consisted of countless small animals, particularly fish and squid, all migrating vertically in synchrony. This layer is so dense with life that it reflects sound waves, creating echoes that suggested solid ground where none existed. Every evening at dusk, this living layer rises from depths of several hundred meters up toward the surface, following the fading light. Every dawn, it descends back into the darkness. This migration happens in oceans worldwide, involving trillions of individual animals, each making the journey to feed in productive surface waters under the cover of darkness, then retreating to the deep to digest in safety. The energy transported by this daily movement links the surface ocean with the deep, creating connections between ecosystems that seem entirely separate. While billions of small animals make this vertical journey, some creatures never leave the depths at all. The gulper eel, also called the pelican eel, possesses a mouth vastly larger than its body, like a living net, that can balloon open to engulf prey much larger than the eel itself. The eel's body is mostly tail, a long whip-like structure tipped with a pink bioluminescent organ that may attract prey or mates. When the gulper eel opens its enormous jaws, its mouth becomes a cavern, the lower jaw unhinging and spreading wide to scoop up whatever drifts within reach. The stomach can expand to accommodate large meals, and the eel's loosely hinged skeleton allows its body to stretch and flex around its prey. After capturing something substantial, the eel may not need to feed again for weeks, its metabolism so slow that a single large meal can sustain it through long periods of fasting. It swims through the darkness, dragging its tail behind it, the glowing lure blinking like a tiny star lost in endless space. Beyond the gulper eel, There exist fish so strange, they seem designed by imagination rather than evolution. The snipe eel grows to 5 feet long but weighs only a few ounces. A ribbon of flesh so thin and delicate that it hardly seems capable of survival. Its jaws curve outward like tweezers, lined with tiny teeth that interlock when the mouth closes, creating a trap for small crustaceans. The eel cannot bite in the traditional sense, but instead sweeps its jaw through clouds of plankton, catching whatever its teeth snag. Its body appears almost two-dimensional, a flat strip of muscle and organs that undulates through the water with serpentine grace. Larvae of snipe eels are even stranger than the adults, with tiny heads and jaws but long streaming teeth that eventually shorten and curve as the fish matures. These larvae, called leptocephali, drift in ocean currents for months or years before transforming into the adult form, growing slowly in the darkness, while the ocean carries them wherever currents flow. This leads to something even more remarkable about deep-sea fish larvae. Many species produce offspring that look nothing like their parents, living in completely different depth zones and eating different food. The larvae drift in the surface waters where food is abundant, growing slowly, while their bodies gradually transform. Some take years to metamorphose into their adult form, drifting thousands of miles from where they hatched. This strategy allows the adults to remain in the resource-poor deep, while their offspring grow in the productive surface waters. The larvae eventually descend to join their parents' world, having never seen them, guided by instinct to seek the darkness and pressure where their species belongs. This disconnection between larval and adult life stages means that for many deep-sea species, we know either the larvae or the adults, but not both, unable to connect the drifting surface forms with the abyssal creatures they'll become. Not all deep-sea animals are solitary hunters or drift as individuals. Some fish school even in the darkness, using lateral lines that detect pressure waves and vibrations to maintain their position relative to neighbors they cannot see. These lateral lines run along the sides of the fish, containing sensory cells that feel the water displaced by other animals. In a school, each fish maintains its spacing by feeling the pressure waves generated by the fish around it, creating coordinated movement without visual contact. The school moves as a unit, thousands of individuals acting as one, turning and flowing like smoke in wind. This coordination provides protection from predators through the confusion effect, making it difficult for a predator to single out and track one individual among the mass. It also allows the school to cover more area while searching for food, increasing the chance that someone in the group will find something to eat, and when one fish begins feeding, others can follow the vibrations to join the feast. While some fish find strength in numbers, others have evolved to become nearly undetectable as individuals. The bristlemouth, holder of the title of most abundant vertebrate on Earth, with billions or possibly trillions of individuals, grows only about 2 inches long and possesses photophores along its belly for counter-illumination. Despite their vast numbers, bristlemouths weren't discovered until deep-sea trawling became common in the 20th century. Hidden by darkness and their small size, they feed on copepods and other zooplankton, and in turn become prey for larger fish and squid. Their biomass exceeds that of all fishing catches combined, yet most people have never heard of them. They exist as a foundation of deep ocean food webs, converting tiny plankton into protein for predators, cycling nutrients and energy through the system with quiet efficiency. Each individual lives its brief life in darkness, one small link in chains of consumption that connect the surface to the abyss. This leads to something even more remarkable about the interconnectedness of ocean ecosystems. Dead bristlemouths and other small fish that die in midwater don't simply vanish. Their bodies become food for bacteria and scavengers as they sink, packages of nutrients falling through the water like gifts. Some are eaten before reaching the bottom, others arrive on the seafloor to feed the sediment-dwelling community. Even their swimming contributes to ocean mixing, as billions of tiny bodies moving vertically each day help circulate water masses, bringing nutrients from the deep toward the surface and transporting oxygen from the surface downward. The collective action of these tiny fish, none larger than a finger, influences ocean chemistry and physics on a global scale. They represent the hidden majority, the uncelebrated abundance that makes visible life possible, working in darkness to maintain the cycles that sustain the world. Not all deep-sea creatures remain mysterious. Scientists have observed some species enough to understand their life cycles and behaviors in detail. The stoplight loosejaw, a type of dragonfish, produces both red and blue-green bioluminescence, making it one of the few fish that can produce red light. The red light acts as a private communication channel, invisible to most other species, but visible to others of its kind. The loosejaw gets its name from its extremely loose jaw hinge that allows the mouth to drop open wide enough to swallow prey nearly as large as itself. The skull essentially breaks apart when the jaw opens, the upper and lower portions separating to create a cavern edged with sharp teeth. After swallowing prey whole, the skull reassembles, the jaw closes, and digestion begins. The fish itself appears black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, nearly invisible, except when its photophores glow. It hunts in the lower twilight zone, where the last traces of surface light fade into total darkness, existing at the boundary between two worlds. While the stoplight loosejaw hunts near the edge of darkness, other creatures have descended to the very deepest trenches. The hadal zone, named for Hades, the Greek underworld, begins at 6,000 meters depth and extends to the deepest point explored, nearly 11,000 meters down. In these trenches, amphipods grow to surprising sizes, some exceeding 12 inches long compared to their shallow water cousins that rarely exceed an inch. These scavengers feed on whatever organic matter reaches the trench floor, which isn't much, given the distance it must fall. When scientists lower cameras baited with food into these depths, swarms of amphipods appear within hours, descending on the bait in feeding frenzies. Their ability to locate and exploit food sources so quickly in such a vast and empty environment suggests a highly developed sense of smell or other chemical detection, though how these senses operate under extreme pressure remains unclear. Beyond the amphipods, the deepest fish discovered are snailfish, adapted specifically for hadal life. These fish appear gelatinous and delicate, their bodies mostly water with minimal skeletal structure, perfectly suited to an environment where pressure is so extreme that it would crush air-filled structures and compress proteins. The fish have evolved special proteins that remain functional under pressure, while most proteins would denature and lose their shape. They swim slowly, conserving energy, feeding on amphipods and other small invertebrates. At depths below approximately 8,400 meters, no fish have been found, suggesting a possible limit to how deep vertebrate life can exist. The pressure at such depths forces cellular and molecular structures into configurations that cannot support the complexity of vertebrate physiology. Yet this theoretical limit has been pushed deeper with each new discovery, reminding us how much we still don't know about life's boundaries. This leads to something even more remarkable about adaptation to pressure. Proteins in deep-sea organisms often contain trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, an organic compound that protects cellular structures from being crushed by pressure. TMAO surrounds proteins and helps them maintain their functional shape, even when compressed by thousands of atmospheres of pressure. Deep-sea fish have high concentrations of TMAO in their tissues, and the deeper a species lives, the more TMAO it tends to possess. Unfortunately, TMAO breaks down into trimethylamine when fish die or are improperly handled, producing the characteristic smell of rotting fish. This same chemical that allows life to exist at depth also makes deep-sea fish smell terrible when they decay, creating a challenge for scientists studying specimens brought to the surface. Not all challenges in the deep ocean are biological. Communication becomes difficult in an environment where sound travels differently than at the surface, and where visual signals reach only a few meters. Yet some deep-sea animals produce sounds, clicks, and rumbles that propagate through the water. Whales and dolphins use echolocation to navigate and hunt, But some deep-sea fish also produce sounds whose purposes remain uncertain. The cusk eel, for instance, can generate sounds by vibrating its swim bladder using specialized muscles. Whether these sounds serve to communicate with other cusk eels, to navigate, or for some other purpose, scientists have yet to determine. The deep ocean is not silent, but rather filled with sounds we're only beginning to identify and understand. Biological sonar and communication in frequencies and patterns that human ears, even when assisted by technology, struggle to interpret. While some creatures communicate through sound, others rely entirely on chemical signals. Many deep-sea animals release pheromones, chemical messengers that spread through the water to convey information about reproductive status, territory, or danger. These chemicals can persist in the stable, unmoving water of the deep ocean for extended periods, creating scent trails and zones that mark territories or breeding areas. When water moves so slowly that currents barely exist, chemical signals become reliable ways to communicate across distances. A female fish releasing spawning pheromones might attract males from hundreds of meters away, all following the concentration gradient to find her. This chemical communication happens invisible to human observers, an entire dimension of deep-sea life that we can detect only with specialized equipment, if at all. This leads to something even more remarkable about deep-sea reproduction. Many species are simultaneous hermaphrodites, possessing both male and female reproductive organs at the same time. In an environment where finding any mate is challenging, being able to mate with any individual of your species you encounter, regardless of their sex, doubles your reproductive opportunities. When two deep-sea fish meet, both can produce eggs, and both can fertilize the other's eggs, ensuring that neither encounter is wasted. This strategy appears in species scattered across multiple fish families, suggesting it has evolved independently many times in response to the same selective pressure. The deep sea teaches us that in extreme environments, flexibility in reproduction, in feeding, in movement, becomes more valuable than specialization. Not all deep-sea animals lay eggs. Some species give birth to live young, protecting their offspring through early development before releasing them into the water. The Pacific sleeper shark, a massive predator that can grow over 20 feet long, is thought to be ovoviviparous, meaning females retain eggs inside their bodies until they hatch, then give birth to fully formed pups. These sharks move slowly through cold, deep water, hunting prey that includes fish, squid, and even carrion that drifts down from above. They're thought to be among the longest-lived sharks, possibly living over 100 years, growing slowly throughout their lives. The sharks were once thought to be sluggish and inactive, but more recent observations suggest they can move quickly when hunting. Their slow metabolism allowing them to survive long periods without food, but not preventing them from short bursts of speed when opportunity appears. While sharks hunt as active predators, other deep-sea animals have evolved to live as parasites. The copepod penella, a relative of the tiny, free-swimming copepods mentioned earlier, spends its adult life embedded headfirst in the flesh of large fish or marine mammals. Only the female's body protrudes from the host's skin, trailing egg sacs that wave in the current. The head and front portion of the copepod burrow deep into the host's tissue, anchoring so firmly that it would tear the copepod apart to remove it. The host organism, often a whale or large fish, carries these parasites like decorations, seemingly unable to dislodge them. While they drain resources from their host, they rarely cause serious harm, having evolved to exploit without killing, to take just enough to survive without destroying the source of their survival. In the deep sea, even parasitism shows restraint, adaptation to scarcity, making every relationship carefully balanced. Beyond parasitic relationships, many deep-sea organisms form mutually beneficial partnerships that allow both species to thrive. Certain shrimp that live near hydrothermal vents cultivate gardens of bacteria on their bodies, structures that look like fuzzy manes growing from their carapaces. The shrimp position themselves where warm vent water mixes with cold seawater, creating ideal conditions for the bacteria to grow. The bacteria, in turn, may provide the shrimp with nutrition through a symbiotic relationship, though the exact nature of this exchange remains under investigation. The shrimp wave their bodies in the water, exposing their bacterial gardens to fresh, mineral-rich fluid, tending their crops with the same care a farmer might show plants in a field. In an environment where conventional food is scarce, growing your own becomes not just advantageous, but essential. This leads to something even more remarkable about symbiotic relationships in the deep. The Yeti crab, discovered near hydrothermal vents in the South Pacific, possesses hairy arms covered in filaments that trap bacteria. The crab waves these arms in the warm vent flow, then periodically scrapes the bacteria into its mouth, harvesting its living crop. The bacteria detoxify minerals and chemicals from the vent water that would otherwise be poisonous, while also providing nutrition for the crab. Multiple species of Yeti crabs have been discovered, each associated with different vent systems, suggesting this lifestyle has evolved independently multiple times, or that Yeti crabs have been spreading to new vents over millions of years. The crabs cluster near vents in surprising densities, creating communities where dozens or hundreds of individuals live in close proximity, unusual for creatures in an environment usually characterized by empty vastness and solitary lives. Not all deep-sea communities cluster around energy sources like vents, cold seeps, areas where methane and other hydrocarbons leak from the seafloor, support ecosystems based on chemosynthesis, just as vents do. Bacteria oxidize the methane, and these bacteria form the foundation for communities of tube worms, mussels, and clams that live nowhere else. The tube worms at cold seeps can live for over 200 years, among the longest-lived invertebrates known, growing incredibly slowly in the cold, stable environment. They anchor themselves in the seafloor, their red plumes waving in the water like underwater flowers, and they never move from where they settled as larvae. For 2 centuries or more, they remain in one spot, filtering chemicals from the water, hosting bacteria in their tissues, existing in a state of patient stillness that challenges our understanding of what it means to be alive. While these tube worms live for centuries in one location, other creatures make journeys across vast distances. The European eel, born in the Sargasso Sea in the western Atlantic, migrates as larvae to European rivers where it spends most of its adult life, then returns to the Sargasso to spawn and die. The adults descend to depths of over 3,000 feet during their return migration, swimming through darkness for months to reach their birthplace. How they navigate across thousands of miles of featureless ocean remains mysterious, though they may use magnetic fields, celestial cues, or chemical signals we haven't identified. The eels undergo dramatic physical changes for their spawning migration, their digestive systems degenerating as they stop eating, their eyes enlarging for deep water vision, their bodies transforming from yellow or green to silver. They swim through the abyss toward death and reproduction, driven by instincts encoded over millions of years of evolution. This leads to something even more remarkable about long-distance oceanic journeys. The leatherback sea turtle, the largest living turtle, dives to depths exceeding 4,000 feet in search of jellyfish, its primary food source. The turtle's body is adapted to handle rapid pressure changes, its flexible shell and compressible lungs, allowing it to descend and ascend without injury. While diving, the turtle's heart rate slows dramatically, conserving oxygen, and blood flow is restricted to essential organs. These adaptations allow dives lasting over an hour, deep into zones where most air-breathing animals cannot venture. The leatherback's ability to exploit deep-sea jellyfish populations gives it access to food sources that few competitors can reach, allowing it to grow to over 2,000 pounds, despite eating prey that is mostly water. The turtle migrates thousands of miles between feeding and nesting areas, crossing entire ocean basins, a wanderer between surface and abyss, between land and sea. Not all deep-sea visitors are as large as leatherback turtles. Seabirds, particularly diving petrels and shearwaters, can reach surprising depths in pursuit of fish and squid. Using their wings to fly underwater, these birds descend into the twilight zone, chasing prey in darkness where surface light barely penetrates. Their bodies are insulated with dense feathers and fat, protecting them from cold water, and their oxygen stores allow dives lasting several minutes. When they capture prey and return to the surface, they bring deep-sea organisms into the reach of surface predators, creating connections between ecosystems that seem entirely separate. A fish that spent its life in darkness might end its days in a bird's stomach. Its nutrients eventually return to the surface world through the bird's waste, linking the abyss to the sunlit realm through the bodies of diving birds. While birds make brief visits to the depths, some marine mammals live most of their lives in deep water. The beaked whales, a diverse family of toothed whales, hold diving records that surpass even sperm whales. Cuvier's beaked whale can dive to depths exceeding 10,000 feet and remain submerged for over 3 hours, far longer than any other mammal. During these extended dives, the whale's heart rate drops to just a few beats per minute, and circulation is restricted to the brain and heart, while other organs temporarily shut down to conserve oxygen. The whales hunt squid and deep-sea fish in total darkness, using echolocation to navigate and locate prey. When they finally surface, they must spend significant time recovering, breathing rapidly to replenish oxygen debt before descending again. These whales are so rarely seen at the surface that many species are known primarily from stranded individuals washed ashore, their lives in the deep remaining largely mysterious despite scientific interest. This leads to something even more remarkable about how marine mammals have adapted to diving. The blood of deep-diving whales contains extremely high concentrations of hemoglobin and myoglobin, proteins that bind oxygen and store it in blood and muscles. Their muscles appear almost black from myoglobin density, and they can store enough oxygen to remain active during long dives despite not breathing. Additionally, their lungs collapse at depth, pushing air into rigid airways and preventing nitrogen from dissolving into the blood under pressure, avoiding the decompression sickness that would affect human divers. When the whale ascends, its lungs re-inflate automatically, and the whale exhales forcefully at the surface, producing the characteristic blow of steam that marks a whale's presence. These adaptations, refined over millions of years, allow mammals that breathe air to invade the deep ocean and exploit food sources unavailable to most air breathers. Not all deep-sea creatures evolved from surface-dwelling ancestors. Some lineages have lived in the depths for so long that they never had a shallow water stage in their evolutionary history. The sea lily, despite its plant-like name, is actually an animal, a type of crinoid related to starfish and sea urchins. It anchors itself to the seafloor on a flexible stalk and extends feather-like arms into the water to capture passing particles of food. These creatures dominated seafloors during the Paleozoic era, hundreds of millions of years ago, and modern deep-sea species represent ancient lineages that have survived in the abyss, while their shallow water relatives mostly went extinct. The sea lily sways in deep-sea currents like a flower in a breeze, its arms filtering endless water, capturing microscopic fragments of nutrition, existing much as its ancestors did when dinosaurs walked on land, when mammals were small, when the continents had different shapes, and the ocean had different chemistry. While sea lilies remain fixed in place, other ancient deep-sea inhabitants move slowly across the bottom. The sea star, or starfish, crawls on hundreds of tube feet, each one extending and contracting in coordinated waves to propel the animal forward. Deep-sea species can have dozens of arms radiating from a central disc, creating shapes like living snowflakes. When a sea star encounters prey, often something slow-moving or sessile like a clam or anemone, it positions itself over the victim and uses its tube feet to pull the prey's shell apart through steady, patient pressure. Once the shell opens even slightly, the sea star everts its stomach, pushing it out through its mouth and into the prey's shell, digesting the soft tissues externally before pulling its stomach back inside. This ability to digest prey outside its body allows the sea star to eat animals larger than it could swallow whole, solving the problem of size through strategy rather than strength. This leads to something even more remarkable about sea stars and their relatives. Many echinoderms, the phylum that includes sea stars, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers, can regenerate lost body parts with remarkable fidelity. A sea star that loses an arm to a predator can grow it back over weeks or months, and in some species, the severed arm itself can regenerate an entire new body from just that single arm. This regenerative ability allows them to survive encounters with predators that would kill most animals, to recover from injury, and continue living as if nothing had happened. In the deep sea, where food is scarce and growth is slow, the ability to repair damage without dying represents a significant survival advantage. These animals carry within them the blueprints to rebuild themselves, cellular instructions that activate when injury occurs, directing the growth of new tissues in precise patterns until the animal is whole again. Not all survival strategies involve regeneration or armor. Some deep-sea creatures rely on speed to escape predators, even in the crushing darkness. Certain squid can jet backward at remarkable velocities, expelling water from their mantle cavity with enough force to propel them away from threats. In the deep ocean, these sudden accelerations create bioluminescent trails as the squid's movement stirs up tiny organisms that flash with light when disturbed. The predator chasing the squid finds itself pursuing a glowing trail, while the squid, no longer bioluminescent once it stops moving, vanishes into darkness off to the side. This defensive tactic turns the squid's predator's sensory abilities against them, using light not to reveal, but to misdirect, to create false trails while the prey escapes unseen. In a realm where deception often works better than confrontation, such strategies flourish. While squid jet through water, some fish have evolved to move in ways that seem almost magical. The sea toad, a type of frogfish that lives on the deep seafloor, uses modified pectoral fins to walk across the bottom, rather than swimming. These fins have evolved into leg-like structures that allow the fish to creep forward, stalking prey, or moving to better ambush positions. The sea toad's body is often camouflaged with fleshy appendages that resemble sponges or corals, making it nearly invisible against the seafloor. It sits motionless for hours or days, waiting for smaller fish or crustaceans to approach close enough to strike. When prey comes within range, the sea toad's mouth opens with explosive speed, creating a vacuum that sucks the prey inside in milliseconds. The strike happens so quickly that prey has no chance to react, captured before they realize they're in danger. After feeding, the fish settles back into immobility, its patience renewed, ready to wait as long as necessary for the next meal. This leads to something even more remarkable about waiting as a survival strategy. In the deep sea, where food arrives unpredictably, the ability to survive long periods without eating becomes more important than the ability to catch food frequently. Many deep-sea organisms have metabolisms so slow that they burn calories at rates that would seem impossible to surface-dwelling creatures. A deep-sea fish might take a year to grow an inch, decades to reach full size, and it may only eat a handful of times per year. This extreme energy conservation allows survival in conditions that would starve more active animals. But it also means that deep-sea ecosystems operate on timescales difficult for humans to comprehend. A change that would transform a surface ecosystem in months might take decades or centuries to manifest in the deep, making these environments both stable and vulnerable, resistant to change, yet slow to recover from disturbance. Not all deep-sea fish conserve energy through stillness. Some species migrate vertically hundreds or thousands of feet each day, following food or avoiding predators. The lanternfish, named for the photophores that line its body like strings of lights, makes nightly journeys from deep water to feed in productive surface zones. These fish exist in such vast numbers that their collective migration shows up on sonar as the deep scattering layer mentioned earlier. Each lanternfish is small, rarely exceeding 6 inches, but their abundance makes them a crucial link in ocean food webs. They feed on zooplankton near the surface, then return to depth, where they themselves become prey for larger fish, squid, and marine mammals. In this way, lanternfish act as conveyor belts, transporting energy captured in the sunlit zone down into the darkness, feeding deep-sea predators that cannot rise to the surface. While lanternfish shuttle between realms, other creatures have evolved to exploit gradients at specific depths. The mid-water jellyfish drifts at particular depth layers, where water density creates stable zones. These gelatinous predators trail long tentacles equipped with stinging cells, creating deadly curtains that span meters of water column. Small fish and crustaceans that blunder into these tentacles are instantly paralyzed by neurotoxins, then drawn up to the jellyfish's mouth for slow digestion. The jellyfish pulses gently, maintaining its position more than actively swimming, an almost passive predator that lets food come to it. Its body contains so much water and so little solid tissue that it's essentially neutrally buoyant, requiring minimal energy to maintain its depth. When the jellyfish dies, it disintegrates quickly, its body dissolving back into the water from which it was mostly made, leaving almost no trace that it ever existed. This leads to something even more remarkable about the fragility of deep-sea life. Many deep-sea organisms have evolved such specialized adaptations to pressure, temperature, and food scarcity that they cannot survive if removed from their environment. Fish, brought to the surface in nets, often die from the pressure change before reaching the deck, their bodies expanding and rupturing as dissolved gases come out of solution. Even if kept in pressurized containers, many species cannot survive in captivity because we don't yet know what they eat or what conditions they require. This fragility means that much of what we know about deep-sea life comes from preserved specimens, dead animals that we examine to infer how they lived. The living behavior, the movement, the interactions between species, all of this remains largely mysterious for many deep-sea organisms, known only from brief observations by submersibles or from footage captured by remotely operated vehicles. Not all deep-sea research requires bringing animals to the surface. Modern technology allows scientists to observe creatures in their natural habitat, using cameras and submersibles capable of withstanding extreme pressure. These observations have revealed behaviors impossible to study in preserved specimens. Scientists have watched sperm whales sleeping vertically in the water column, their bodies hanging motionless for minutes at a time in what appears to be a state of rest. They've observed fish schooling in patterns of bioluminescence, creating coordinated light shows whose purposes remain unclear. They've filmed squid hunting in coordinated groups, multiple individuals working together to herd prey, suggesting intelligence and social behaviors we didn't know existed. Each expedition to the deep reveals something unexpected, some behavior or creature or interaction that challenges our assumptions about what's possible in such an extreme environment. While technology expands our knowledge, vast regions remain unexplored. The deep ocean covers most of Earth's surface, yet we have mapped only a small fraction of it in detail. Many seamounts, underwater mountains that rise from the abyssal plains, have never been visited by humans, or even by our remote vehicles. These seamounts create habitats that interrupt the otherwise flat seafloor, providing hard surfaces for corals and sponges to anchor on, creating oases of biodiversity that attract fish and other mobile animals. Each seamount potentially hosts unique species found nowhere else, having evolved in isolation as their ancestors colonized the mountain thousands or millions of years ago. Scientists estimate that we have discovered perhaps 10% of deep-sea species, meaning that 90% remain unknown, swimming or crawling or drifting through darkness that human eyes have never illuminated. This leads to something even more remarkable about undiscovered species and the mysteries they represent. Every year, expeditions to the deep ocean identify new species of fish, squid, crustaceans, and other organisms, sometimes dozens of new species in a single expedition. Some of these discoveries represent entirely new families or orders, branches of the tree of life that we didn't know existed. In 2020, researchers discovered gelatinous creatures in the Mariana Trench that they couldn't confidently identify, organisms that didn't clearly fit into any known category, possibly representing something entirely new to science. These discoveries remind us how little we know about our own planet, how much remains hidden in the ocean that covers most of Earth's surface. The deep sea may be the largest unexplored frontier left on Earth, the last place where genuine discovery, the finding of things completely unknown, remains routine rather than exceptional. Not all mysteries involve unknown species. Known species often harbor mysteries about their life cycles, migrations, or behaviors. The European eel, despite being economically important and intensively studied, has never been observed spawning in the wild. We know eels return to the Sargasso Sea to reproduce because that's where larvae are found, but no one has witnessed the actual spawning event or found eggs in the open ocean. Similarly, the mating behavior of giant squid remains undocumented, though we know they must reproduce because young specimens are occasionally caught. These gaps in our knowledge persist because the deep ocean remains fundamentally difficult to observe, its vastness and darkness making it nearly impossible to be in the right place at the right time to witness rare events. We see the results, the larvae, the eggs, the next generation, but the acts of reproduction themselves happen in privacy that darkness guarantees. While some mysteries involve specific behaviors, others concern the basic biology of deep-sea organisms. Scientists still debate how long some deep-sea fish live, whether they mature quickly or take decades to reach reproductive age. Growth rings in otoliths, small ear bones, suggest that some species live over a century, growing impossibly slowly by surface standards. If true, this means that deep-sea fish populations recover slowly from disturbance, potentially taking human lifetimes or longer to replenish after being depleted. This has implications for conservation and fishing, suggesting that deep-sea ecosystems, once damaged, might not recover on any timescale meaningful to human society. The stability that allows slow growth also creates vulnerability, making these ecosystems precious and irreplaceable in ways we're only beginning to appreciate. This leads to something even more remarkable about the value of deep-sea ecosystems beyond their biology. The deep ocean plays crucial roles in regulating Earth's climate by storing carbon dioxide absorbed from the atmosphere. When marine organisms die and sink, they carry carbon with them into the deep, where it may remain sequestered for hundreds or thousands of years. This biological carbon pump helps moderate atmospheric carbon dioxide concentrations, influencing global temperatures and climate patterns. The deep sea also stores vast amounts of heat, absorbing thermal energy from the surface and distributing it through slow-moving currents that take centuries to complete their cycle. Changes to deep ocean circulation, whether from warming temperatures, altered salinity, or other factors, could have profound effects on climate worldwide. The deep sea, despite being remote and dark and apparently disconnected from human experience, influences the conditions that make life possible on land. Its slow, cold currents and patient organisms maintaining balances we depend on without knowing they exist. Not all deep-sea impacts on surface life involve climate and chemistry. The genetic diversity present in deep-sea organisms represents potential benefits for biotechnology and medicine. Enzymes that function under extreme pressure might have industrial applications. Proteins that remain stable in cold might inform food preservation. Bioluminescent chemicals might advance imaging technology. Scientists have only begun to explore these possibilities, screening deep-sea organisms for useful compounds, but early results suggest that the adaptations that allow life in the abyss might solve problems on the surface. The light-producing chemicals from jellyfish, for instance, have revolutionized cellular biology, allowing researchers to tag and track proteins inside living cells. What other solutions might hide in the bodies of creatures that live where conditions seem incompatible with life? What innovations has evolution developed in the deep that we might learn from and apply to human challenges? While the deep sea holds potential benefits, it also faces threats from human activities. Deep sea fishing, especially bottom trawling that drags nets across the seafloor, destroys habitats that took thousands of years to develop. Cold water corals, which grow perhaps a millimeter per year, can be obliterated in seconds by a single pass of a trawl. Plastic pollution reaches even the deepest trenches, with plastic bags and bottles found at depths exceeding 30,000 feet, and microplastics appear in the tissues of deep-sea organisms far from any human settlement. Mining operations, planned or already underway, aim to extract minerals from the seafloor, disrupting habitats and creating sediment plumes that could spread for miles. The deep sea, once protected by its inaccessibility, now faces exploitation, as technology allows humans to reach depths previously beyond our grasp. Whether we will choose to protect these ecosystems or exploit them remains an open question. This leads to something even more remarkable about our relationship with the deep ocean and our responsibility toward it. We depend on healthy oceans for oxygen production, climate regulation, food resources, and countless other ecosystem services. Yet we have treated the ocean as an infinite resource and a bottomless waste disposal system. The deep sea, because it seems remote and empty, has been particularly vulnerable to this assumption. Yet, as we learn more about these ecosystems, we discover complexity, interconnection, beauty, and fragility that demand our respect and care. The creatures that live in permanent darkness, that experience pressures that would crush us, that survive on tiny amounts of food arriving unpredictably from above, these organisms have persisted for millions of years, surviving extinctions and climate changes that eliminated most life on Earth. They represent resilience and adaptation at extremes we can barely imagine. Do we have the wisdom to protect them from the one threat they never evolved to handle? From us and our technologies and our careless exploitation of every frontier we reach? Not all hope is lost for deep-sea conservation. International agreements have established marine protected areas in some regions, prohibiting destructive practices and allowing ecosystems to persist undisturbed. Scientists continue to document deep-sea biodiversity, building the knowledge base necessary for informed conservation decisions. Technology improves, allowing less destructive observation and study methods. Public awareness grows as documentaries and educational programs reveal the wonders of the deep ocean to audiences who will never visit these realms personally. Each person who learns about the deep sea and cares about its preservation becomes an advocate for protection, a voice arguing that some places should remain wild, that not every resource must be exploited, that mystery and darkness and creatures we can barely understand have value beyond any use we might extract from them. The deep sea needs advocates because it cannot speak for itself, cannot defend itself against human encroachment, can only exist or not exist based on choices we make. While conservation efforts continue, research also expands, revealing new wonders regularly. Scientists have discovered that some deep-sea microbes, bacteria living in sediments thousands of feet below the seafloor, exist in a state of near-suspended animation, dividing only once every 1,000 years or more. These organisms may be among the oldest living things on Earth. Individual cells that have been alive since human civilizations were young, since ice ages came and went, persisting in darkness through time, spans our minds struggle to grasp. They survive on tiny amounts of energy, captured from chemical reactions in the rocks around them, living at the absolute minimum threshold of what we can call life. Their existence expands our definition of what's possible, suggesting that life might exist in even more extreme environments than we've discovered, perhaps in the deep subsurface of other planets or moons, in places we currently assume are dead, because we lack imagination, shaped by knowledge of Earth's own extremophiles. This leads to something even more remarkable about the implications of deep-sea life for astrobiology and our search for life beyond Earth. If life can exist in total darkness, under crushing pressure, in freezing temperatures, surviving on chemical energy rather than sunlight, then perhaps life exists in similar conditions elsewhere in the solar system. Jupiter's moon Europa has an ocean beneath its ice shell, possibly reaching depths greater than Earth's oceans. Saturn's moon Enceladus has geysers erupting from a subsurface sea, spraying water into space. These environments might host life similar to Earth's deep-sea creatures, adapted to darkness and pressure, thriving on chemical energy from geological activity. The deep sea teaches us that life doesn't need sunlight, doesn't need warmth, doesn't need any of the conditions we once thought essential. It needs only liquid water, some source of chemical energy, and time for evolution to find solutions. If those conditions exist elsewhere, then perhaps we're not alone. Perhaps the universe hosts other forms of life that exist in darkness as profound as the abyss, creatures we might understand better for having studied the extremophiles in our own ocean. Not all questions about deep-sea life concern science and conservation. Some involve philosophy and our understanding of consciousness and experience. Does the giant squid possess anything like awareness as we understand it? When the octopus changes color in the darkness, does it experience something analogous to emotion? Do fish feel pain when caught? Do they suffer in ways that should concern us ethically? These questions have no easy answers, but studying deep-sea creatures forces us to confront them. These animals live in ways so different from our experience that we struggle to imagine what their existence feels like from the inside. Yet they clearly sense their environment, respond to stimuli, avoid danger, seek food and mates, exhibit behaviors that seem purposeful and complex. Whether this reflects genuine subjective experience or merely sophisticated biological programming, we cannot say with certainty. But asking the question reminds us that we're not the only form of life that matters, that consciousness might take forms we don't recognize, that our fellow creatures deserve consideration simply for existing, for successfully navigating the challenges their environments present. While philosophers debate consciousness, scientists continue observing behavior that suggests complexity we're only beginning to appreciate. Octopuses solve problems, navigate mazes, recognize individual humans, use tools, and exhibit what appears to be play behavior. Squid communicate through rapid color changes, coordinate hunting strategies, and display what might be individual personalities. Even fish, often dismissed as simple and instinct-driven, show evidence of social learning, memory lasting months, and decision-making that suggests they weigh options rather than simply responding reflexively to stimuli. The more we study deep-sea creatures, the more we find evidence of sophistication that challenges our assumptions about intelligence and awareness. Perhaps the question isn't whether these animals possess consciousness, but rather what forms consciousness might take. What variations on the theme of subjective experience, evolution, has composed in the darkness of the abyss, and now the creatures fade behind your thoughts. We've drifted through 100 quiet truths about deep-sea life, from the giant squid's massive eyes gathering photons in darkness, to bacteria that divide once per millennium in sediments beneath the seafloor, from bioluminescent displays that create galaxies of light in liquid space, to creatures that survive on fragments of nutrition drifting down from worlds above. From the deepest trenches where pressure crushes and cold grips, to hydrothermal vents where life flourishes on chemical energy from Earth's interior, you are connected to this world. The same water that fills the abyssal trenches flows in your blood. The same chemistry that powers deep-sea bacteria drives your cells. The same evolutionary history that shaped the octopus shaped you. We are all descended from ocean life, all carrying within us the genetic legacy of ancestors that swam in ancient seas. The deep ocean, though you may never see it, affects your life through climate regulation, through oxygen production, through carbon storage. Its health is your health, its mysteries your mysteries, its survival connected to your own. Tonight, as you rest, deep-sea creatures continue their patient lives in darkness. The anglerfish waits with its glowing lure. The octopus drifts above the seafloor, trailing bioluminescent arms. The sperm whale descends into the abyss, chasing giant squid through black water. They exist whether you think of them or not, living their strange lives in ways that seem alien yet familiar, different yet fundamentally similar to all life. And you are safe, warm, resting in a world full of wonder, connected through water and chemistry, and shared biology to creatures in the deepest trenches, to life in the coldest darkness, to mysteries that persist despite our curiosity and our technology. If you're still awake, go ahead and watch the next chapter. Sleep well and dream softly, perhaps of bioluminescent creatures drifting through darkness like stars, of ancient life forms older than memory, of the vast unknown ocean that covers most of our small blue planet. Good night.